Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining our Mercku Magic Mesh webinar. Today, we will be discussing the topic transforming customer experience with Wi-Fi. Could somebody raise their hand or send a little message in the chat just to check if my audio quality is okay? Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. Sorry. Yeah, as I mentioned today, the topic is transforming customer experience with Wi-Fi. It may seem like a less intriguing topic, but it's a great way for you to improve your customer's experience and also save money. So today we are joined by participants from all of these countries that are shaded in red. So thank you so much for joining us. All right, I will head into the logistics. So today our content will be around 30 minutes, and then following our presentation will be a 30-minute Q&A session. This webinar is being recorded, and the video recording, slides, and a quick summary will be shared in an email after our webinar. If you have any questions during the presentation, please send it in the chat. We will address all questions during our Q&A portion. Also, if you have any questions that you want us to answer after the webinar, you can contact Mercku for more information. We will provide a contact email in our call to action email, and you will be able to maybe book a meeting with us to talk a bit about it later. For all participants of today's webinar, we offer a 50% discount on samples, and you'll also receive our next B2B newsletter to stay in the loop. So just a quick run through of our agenda. We'll go through a quick introduction of Mercku, and then we'll jump into the actual content of our presentation, and we'll wrap that up with a summary. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A portion for all questions that you will have. All right, so a quick introduction on Mercku. Mercku is a Wi-Fi and smart home hardware manufacturing company that is based in Waterloo, Ontario in Canada. My name is Angie. I'm an analyst here at Mercku. I'll also be your co-host for today. So my job today is to facilitate the chat and also the questions for our Q&A portion. So just a quick introduction on Eric, who is our presenter. Eric is our Director of Growth here at Mercku, and he's also based in Europe. So I will pass the torch on to Eric.
Thank you very much for that, Angie. I'm actually going to share my screen now. Okay, yeah. I'm based in Europe, so I'm having most of the business in our European countries, starting from Germany, Switzerland, and so on. And I'm a lot responsible for the sales. So since 10 years, I'm active in the technology industry and very excited to be a part of Mercku. So before we start, I actually want to learn more about you. So I want to know your experience so far. There will be now a poll in the middle of the screen, which you should see now, right in the center. So please answer the question just by clicking on the poll. There should be a pop-up window in the center of your screen. Okay, I've not received. Okay, there it goes. Good. Okay. All right, I'll wait 10 more seconds. Most of the people have already handed in their answers. All right, one more person left. Good, interesting to see. So most of the people have already experience with mesh Wi-Fi. And the biggest share, more than 50% of the participants here today, are either internet service providers or have a telecom background. The other around 40% are distributors or retailers. So the biggest pain point that I can see right now is it's difficult to acquire new customers. The playing field is getting more complex, and digitalization is not happening fast enough. Okay, very interesting. Good. Moving on. Part two. Okay, quick introduction about the home network. Those of you at my age or maybe older, you maybe still remember those computer rooms. It was a specific room which you had to sneak in if you wanted to use internet. So your computer was connected to it. But slowly over time, internet and the equipment related to it has evolved. So in the beginning, it was these really old devices which had a speed maybe of 8 megabit or 60 megabit. And you were kind of the very modern guy if you had maybe 64 or 128 megabit speed, kilobits actually. And so like people, also the technology has evolved. And so nowadays you can see lots of devices with these cute little rabbit ears that are helping now to, instead of connecting via wire to the internet, distribute internet over Wi-Fi. And because of the Wi-Fi connectivity that people have at home now, they can actually connect more and more devices in their homes. And this has led to a distribution of many devices. Okay, I'm just getting a notice that my microphone is too loud. I'm going to turn it on a little bit. I hope this is better now. So you have all kinds of device manufacturers that are providing solutions in the wellness space, security space, Wi-Fi, locks, and so on. And of course, all of these devices are putting a big, big pressure on your home network also. So you can say that every 1 or 2 years, the amount of data that the households are now consuming or creating is almost doubling. So with people now using streaming services, they're playing games that soon are just on the cloud. They have more and more data consumption in their homes right now. So I just want to make a little poll here to have a little bit interactivity with you. So can you guess how much bandwidth is required to use 2 Netflix shows at the same time? Please guess. Okay, I can see already we have a lot of experts here in the room. Most have guessed the right answer. So the correct answer is 10 megabits. Just to show basically how this is related, Netflix itself recommends a 3 megabit connection. to watch a standard quality stream. And 5 megabits is good for high definition. So if you want to watch 2 high defs, then it would be 10 megabits. All right. With this said, with the increase of devices, with the pressure on the network, you can see that the subscriber demand and your customer demand is definitely increasing. So what do you think? Which industry has one of the lowest customer satisfaction ratings? You have 5 choices here. You can either choose 1 or 2 or 3. Okay, the answers are very interesting to see. So the majority has voted for internet service providers. Some voted for banks or limited service restaurants or financial advisors. The correct answer is internet service providers. And this is actually a very sad truth. So to me, it was very surprising to see the result of this customer satisfaction survey, that internet service providers are so far behind of many, many, many other industries. So for consumers, if they are realizing or experiencing problems with their internet at home, the first person or the first organization they are blaming is the internet service provider. So if for consumers or for subscribers, it's very typical to jump between different subscribers. They're just looking, okay, which one is maybe a little bit cheaper, which one is maybe offering a little bit faster speed. And the demand of those consumers, they simply want more of everything. As I mentioned before, they want more data. So they have an increasing number of devices. Each household now has an average of 10 devices. And that number is also increasing very quickly. They want, of course, faster speed. So now with the rise of all the streaming services, with cloud computing, cloud gaming, there's more pressure on that. They want to have this, of course, very stable. The very high stability. So they cannot accept that the movie or the video that they want to watch right now is buffering. So they want immediately access to the internet. And this access should be mobile. So even when watching on phone or iPad, they want to walk around and enjoy basically that service. So this means that all the explosion in data is leading to a rising cost for the providers, and with a shrinking revenue. So people have a lot of choice, they have a very high demand, and it's more and more difficult to offer the best solutions for this. And actually, the cost of a bad customer experience is not just losing that customer or dealing with the customer on phone calls. That cost is much higher. So if you imagine, if you need to employ people that need to jump on the phone to deal with the customer, understand the problem, then try to assess, okay, what's the right solution here? If they cannot find it out on the phone, they need to send a technician to the home of the customer. And all of this is leading to a lot of costs. So each bad experience that your subscriber is having is leading to a very high cost for the service provider. So for the demand that customers have, you can actually divide it into 2 different parts. The first one is the demand of typical devices that they're using. These are phones and computers. Those are usually using the 5 gigahertz frequency. They're requiring fast speed, but you have more and more atypical devices, and those are the ones experiencing most trouble or most issue with the Wi-Fi. So these devices are usually far away from the Wi-Fi router. They're often put outside. So if you have security cameras, for example, or you have a smart barbecue grill that is standing on the terrace, those devices have trouble with the internet connection. So I just want to ask the question here, is internet equal to Wi-Fi? That's actually the perception that a lot of the users have nowadays. So just to ask a question, like, what do you think is the most used device on the home network? You have a poll again on the middle of your screen. Okay, again, we have definitely experts here in the room. Most people are guessing the right one. It's of course the router. So even though the gateway or the modem is collecting the broadband connection, it's the router who has to distribute all of the data and the bandwidth. So adding on this, I want to ask you another question. So what do you think are the most important parts inside the router to ensure a best performance? I think this question is a little bit more tricky. So remember, you have a multiple choice. Just as a hint, it's not just one part. Okay, very interesting to see. Yeah, I can see here on the list that there are two parts not mentioned, which are actually very important. So to show you the results, most people have guessed antenna, and that's of course, that's correct. It is definitely one of the most important parts. The second most voted is the chipset, but not many people have guessed the transceiver and the PCB board. So from our experience, it is actually the antenna, the transceiver, and the PCB board. So you can imagine the chipset is of course very important, but if you put a Ferrari engine into like a small Fiat car, you know, the engine can be super, super fast. It's still not able to provide the bandwidth throughput needed to cover all of the devices. So without the right antenna, transceiver, and the adequate PCB board, it's not possible to utilize the chipset in the full way. This is one of the core strengths of Mercku, and I'm going to go into more detail of this a little bit later. So currently, homes are still constrained with Wi-Fi performance, and this is kind of hard to believe. We're living in the year 2019, and still over 1/3 of people having issues with their Wi-Fi at home, and it's because they're experiencing a bottleneck. So even though the broadband connection is providing a very fast connection, 100 megabits or more, it's the router that is not able to distribute that connection to the devices. So one of our users has sent us a screenshot of before and after. So before, he was using the router provided by the service provider. He had only a connection of like less than 5 megabits, which is very disappointing for him. And after he changed to a mesh Wi-Fi system, the speed increased by more than 25 times. So you can imagine the smile on the face of that user, just realizing, okay, wow, it is technically actually possible. And the reason why most users are experiencing, have a bad experience with the Wi-Fi is every home is unique. So they're like a snowflake. They have different size, they have different structures and materials of the walls, different furniture, different number of people in the homes. So we cannot expect to put one device that fits all. We basically need a modular solution and a flexible solution that is helping everybody to have the good connection in their homes. And sadly, nowadays, most of the time, it's the ISPs, the internet service providers, who are blamed for the connectivity problems. So you have some users who are doing their own hacks to try to improve the connection that they have. So they're putting, for example, tin cans around the antennas, which is doesn't have any effect actually. And users now slowly are being educated that it's not the problem of the internet service provider, it's actually the problem of their router. So that's why we're entering the mesh Wi-Fi now. So just to quickly introduce how mesh Wi-Fi works, usually if people want to increase the connectivity in their homes, they're buying repeaters. So they're setting up these repeaters. The repeater is grabbing the signal and forwards it to whatever device is further away from the router. And when doing so, they're losing 50% of the signal quality. Other people, they're just connecting it via hardwire. So they're putting the wires all over the homes to make sure that the TVs, the computers, the game consoles are well connected. Another solution is power lines. So they're using the electric wires and the electric grid of their homes to distribute the Wi-Fi signal. And now the most, let's say, the strongest solution is mesh Wi-Fi. So what mesh Wi-Fi is doing, these little nodes that many people understand as repeaters, but what they're really doing is they're not repeating the signal, but they're creating a copy. So whenever you put these little nodes in your home, you can create, you have a new access point that is creating the Wi-Fi signal in that room. So it's keeping the same SSID and just making sure that you have a great connection there. So traditionally, people have the router maybe in the kitchen or in the corridor, and then are very upset that there's a bad signal in the bedroom. What mesh Wi-Fi systems can do now, basically, wherever you experience a bad connection, you can just add one of these nodes to have a good connection. And just to show again about the signal strength. So a typical repeater is losing about 50% of the signal when forwarding the signal. A mesh Wi-Fi is more like an echo or more like a copy of the Wi-Fi system. That's why they are able to keep 100% of the signal strength. So is mesh Wi-Fi actually really magic? I just have a quick poll here about what you think the benefits of mesh are. Yeah, very seems to be everybody has not everybody, now some different answers coming up. But the majority has a clear picture on this. Okay. All right. Almost everybody has voted. So the short answer is all of the above. So it's guaranteeing faster speeds all over your home. It has a better reliability and a better coverage. So just to explain this, a mesh Wi-Fi network can ensure that all of the devices can connect to one SSID. It's self-healing. So whenever one of the nodes is, having some issues, the network is self-healing and connecting then the device to whichever is the nearest or the access point with the best performance nearby. From the perspective of the service provider or the person selling the device, it's a single solution. So instead of having like 10 or 20 different products or hardwares to adapt to different homes, offices, you can just have one solution, because the mesh Wi-Fi system, you can scale it flexibly however you need it. So it's very easy to deploy actually those systems. Also with mesh Wi-Fi, you are basically redesigning how the devices are connected. And because of this, even when you are moving around, it's like the devices itself are handing over the connection and can ensure that you have a great connectivity. Great. I see already in the chat we have a couple of questions coming in, so I will get back to that after the content. But mesh Wi-Fi, of course, also has some drawbacks. So the setup sometimes can be challenging. Many times it's not very easy to set up the system. The cost initially is a little bit higher because it's more than one device. So you don't have just one router that is supposed to distribute the signal, but you have often the main router and then these mesh nodes that you're distributing the homes. And not all of the mesh systems are actually very flexible because most of them just consist of one device that you basically buy then 2 or 3 times to distribute. So we at Mercku, we were thinking a better solution for this is if you have one master, so to say, and then a lot of little slaves that are very automatically and easily connected with the master that are cheaper, but still like have a very similar performance to expand the mesh. So from a user perspective, sometimes users either overinvest, so they're buying, let's say, a 3 or 4 component mesh Wi-Fi system for a 50 square meter apartment, which is really too much, or they underinvest. So they still have dead spots, which is hard for them to fix. So in general, when looking at mesh, you can say that in terms of range, flexibility, the way how you operate it, so it's often done via a smartphone app. The extra features it can provide, the reliability, ease of setup, and the value. It's definitely the most interesting solution, especially for people that are looking to move into the smart home direction. Because then you have many devices, not just 10, often like 20, 30, 40, that need to be connected to the Wi-Fi. And if you don't have a good Wi-Fi, well, then you can't really build a smart home because these devices are not working. Okay, now I want to make a quick introduction about the Mercku M2 Mesh Wi-Fi system. Just to tell a little bit about the story. So our founders were actually the people who are responsible that our phones turn from this to that. So they developed the modern cell phone antenna technology that are used now by all the phones in the world. And that's why with their experience and expertise, they were also able to turn routers that look like this into that. So we are very, very good in building the right technology to ensure that the communication between devices is ensured and at its best. So, which is the Mercku Wi-Fi system. This system has 4 different SKUs. So you can either look at the height, which is basically one router, and then it has 4 mesh points. So these are very easy to deploy in the home, and then once you plug it into the electricity plug, it's automatically connecting and building the mesh network. But we're also offering, we call this swarm, where you use 3 of the M2 routers. And this is especially useful if you want to go over different floors. But of course, users can also just get the router standalone and add these mesh nodes very flexible throughout their homes. So in reality, it can look somewhat like this in people's homes. So if you have, for example, a very large home, then you might want to get three routers that you in each floor basically place one. One of the routers is always the master. So this master is basically connected with a broadband, and then all the other routers are automatically connecting with the main router and building the mesh network. If you have, for example, a cabin outside, you can just add another B who is then forwarding and copying also the signal outside. So as I mentioned before, it's very flexible and very modular depending on the need of each of the homes. With our system, we have won many awards, including, for example, the Red Dot Design Award, the CS Innovation Award. And all of the awards are basically pointing out 3 main things that we are good at. The first one is it's a very beautiful design. So often in homes, you don't even want to show your router. It's not looking good. You don't want to put it on the living room table or next to your TV. So you try to hide it somewhere in a box. And when doing so, you even put more pressure on your Wi-Fi performance. So we wanted to make sure that we can offer a beautiful design that you're not afraid of putting in the center of, let's say, your living room. The second is setup. It's a very easy setup. It's literally 3 simple steps. You put it out of the box, you connect it with the electricity, and then you just use the app to basically set up the mesh Wi-Fi. It's a very easy step. Now talking about the coverage. So if you look at open space coverage, one queen alone, so one router alone, can already cover 300 square meters. In indoor spaces, you roughly have to half that coverage. So it's about 100 to 200 square meters that the queen alone can actually cover. And this is always depending, of course, on the structure and the material of the walls. So if you have steel concrete, of course, then the signal is degrading much more from room to room. But a queen alone can already build a big network. And then what I mentioned before with modularity and flexibility, you can then just, scale that network. So you can add 10, 12, 14 Bs, queens, or you can also add Bs. So you can build a really big network that can cover 1,000 square meters or more with the same mesh Wi-Fi. So coming back to the 3 innovations that we have integrated into our routers. The first one is the transceiver. So the transceiver itself is so sensitive that we were enabled to achieve a 20 decibel difference between the sensitivity. So usually routers are about 65 or 70 decibel. We can achieve 90, which is about 100 times more sensitive than the industry average. So what this means is it's very easy for the transceiver to listen to the signals. So it can receive basically from devices what data they need, what connection they need. The second one is our antenna. As I mentioned before, the person who is designing our antenna also designed the modern cell phone antenna. So it's probably the expert in the world when it comes to antennas, and he was able to build a very, very high gain omnidirectional antenna that is able to spread the connectivity all throughout the house. And the third one is internal noise reduction. So many people don't think of this because it's maybe not well known and not the direct or first thing that comes to mind. But just as a reminder, Wi-Fi is a radio frequency, so it is noise. And if you are already in the router or the system itself, you have a lot of noise, it's more difficult for the router to send and receive signals. So if we think about noise, it's like, me speaking right now in the small room that I am here, or speaking maybe in the football stadium. So in the football stadium, it would be much more difficult for you to understand me. And that's kind of the situation that's right now in many of the routers. So by piece by piece designing the PCB board in our routers, we were able to decrease that internal system noise, and by this make it very, very efficient and sensitive to sending and receiving signals. We have gained a lot of positive feedback from global media, who also all point out the simplicity. So very easy to set up, beautiful design. We have an app that is basically giving the user control over the whole network. So you can see which devices are connected, you can blacklist them, you can create guest Wi-Fis, you can block websites, or you can, for example, lower also the bandwidth of single devices. If you don't want your child to play PlayStation after 8 p.m., you just lower the connection and then make sure that he can go to bed. And our devices are also TR069 enabled. So it's possible for the service provider to remotely connect to the router and see, in terms of issues, what's the root of the issue, to have an easier way for troubleshooting and managing the devices. We are also able to fully customize those solutions. So it's starting from the device itself. So we can adjust, the colors of our partners. We can also add the logo and also in terms of packaging. Okay, quick poll again to see if you are with me. How much open space does a Mercku router cover? All right, most answers are right. So thank you for staying with me here. It's 300 meters. So it's what I said in the beginning. You can see it basically here in the corner of this graph. So one queen alone is able to cover 300 square meters in an open space. Coming to the final part, which is questions and answers. And for this part, I actually also want to invite our CEO, who is here with us today, Alex. He was putting on his video also before. So I'm pulling up quickly the questions so I can see. All right, so one question is, what is the max? Oh, okay, the question just got answered. I ask it for everybody. So what's the max number of bees that we can connect? For this, I go back to this slide here again. So for a good performance, I would say you can go to 4, 5, 6. Anything beyond that, you will definitely see a decrease in the connectivity, but you can still go to 10 or more. Another question is this Wi-Fi 6, so the AX standard? No, so we don't work on Wi-Fi 6 right now. We don't think it's a solution that subscribers will actually need at the moment. So if you look at the cost involved to get a Wi-Fi 6 enabled router, compared with the devices that users have, we don't see this necessary for the next 1 or 2 years. So then Eric was asking, will this cover remote management or Wi-Fi 6? I'm not sure. I think that's 2 questions. So the remote management, yes, we have. It's the TR069 that I was mentioning here before. So maybe to say 1 or 2 more words on this. Usually service providers have a special server called ACS server, and with this they can connect to each of the router and the mesh system basically in people's homes. And inside this, we can actually adapt more than 1,000 different features, what they can then do, what kind of data they can see, to make sure it's very easy to troubleshoot issues that their users have. On top of this, we also have a function in our mobile phone app where the user with one button can upload the whole system log. And with this, it's very easy to see what's the root of the issue. Is it maybe because one device is 24/7 demanding a very high speed, so it's blocking off all of the other devices? It's very easy basically to see what's the issue here. Okay, when do you expect to support Wi-Fi 6? It's not planned in the year 2020, so next year. What I have not mentioned yet is we are launching actually a new product in the year 2020. From all the specifications of the product itself, it will be more than double as good as our M2. But this comes, of course, also with a price. But the main innovation that we are including in our new product, which we call the Haven, is it is able to see what's happening in people's homes or in indoor spaces. So we achieve this by something called indoor positioning. So it can do active and passive positioning. Active, you can think of little beacons that you can attach, for example, on a dog or on a bag or your wallet or keys, and you can see it moving around. Passive one is like a motion sensor. So whenever something passes basically that motion sensor, you can use, for example, geofencing. So you can see, let's say, a dog is entering an area or leaving an area, and based on this, you can trigger different actions. So let's say a child is going to the swimming pool. It's a dangerous area, so you want to get notified of this, so you get there as quickly as possible to maybe put the child away to prevent it from drowning. Yeah, we will send you also information about the next generation system. Okay, next question. What would you recommend that an operator launch with, dual band or tri-band? What are considerations given considerations? Of course, we had the same question when we were designing our M2 Mesh Wi-Fi system. So we were, choosing between dual band or tri-band. We have, in the end, decided for dual band because after testing, we realized that we can achieve close to the same result that a tri-band router can do. And with close, I mean the performance is basically very similar, but the price is much lower. So it's a much more cost-effective solution. So from an internet service provider perspective, you can achieve, right now already a much better performance with a dual band mesh Wi-Fi router than with a tri-band one. So you don't have to invest too much money to right now onboard a much better solution. Okay. Another question is a specific tool required to ease the deploy solution? So I understand this question from the remote management. From the customer perspective, they have two ways to control their system. One is a web interface that most of the routers have and an app. From the service provider perspective, you basically have this standardized protocol TR069, and you need to work with, if you don't have your own ACS server, you need to work with another provider who has an ACS server. So you can rent that service, and with that server, we can then integrate this protocol. And then you have access basically remotely to those devices. I hope that answers the question. Rudy was asking this. Rudy, if this doesn't answer your question, please send it in the chat. Okay, next question. The mesh is mostly illustrated with the router in the middle, and all the APs are directly connected with the router. Are there big differences in performance when you install the router downstairs and connect the APs in series? One on every floor level where the APs. So that's kind of the main difference to a repeater. You can, in theory, also install the one that is connected with the broadband, like here in the corner. And then you can imagine it like building a chain. So then you have another one here, another one here. So you move basically throughout your house, and your mesh system is helping you to copy that Wi-Fi system throughout your house. So you don't necessarily need the router to be in the center of your home. Of course, this would be the ideal situation, but mesh is helping you also to move it throughout your home. Next question. How long does the bee take to authenticate and connect to the bee when you plug in? So it's not a thing of 1, 2, or 3 seconds. It can take up to 2 minutes, but there's an LED indicator which is showing you if the bee is connected or not. So once you plug in the bee, you just click on the little red button. Let me show this again on the picture. So here in front of the bee, you have a red button. So you plug it in, you click the button, and then it's basically automatically creating the mesh connection. Okay, another question. Is it better to place the router on the first floor, 1B in the attic, and 1B in the living room, even though in the living room are most demanding devices, Chromecast, etc.? Or can I best place the router downstairs and the APs in series? So ideally, you have a router in the room where you have most of the devices. So in this case, for example, I might want to put not a B, but a second router into the living room to make sure that it can handle all of the devices. Maybe a B is not strong enough to cover, let's say, 10 or 20 devices with a very high demand. So it might be good to put a second queen then into that room. Okay. Next question. Are you also going to adopt the Easy Mesh standard with your devices? This is a common question that we are getting asked. From a user perspective, I can understand why they are asking. They're wondering, okay, I have already a router at my home. Why can't I just use that router to create my own mesh network? It's a little bit more complicated than that. So for our system to ensure the best performance, we cannot rely on other routers that we cannot control because we don't have access to those devices. So the slowest device with the worst performance would pull down the whole network. That's why we have consciously decided to not implement Easy Mesh in people's homes. So what people are trying to achieve is having a great connection at home. And that's why we also decided to have these little Bs, which are more cost effective. Instead of letting the user buy just 5 or 10 routers, they can just buy maybe 1 router, 5 Bs, which is a much more cost effective solution for them. Okay, another question here. It's a pity that most of the smart functions are not usable when putting the router in bridge mode. This is understandable because you disable the router function completely. Okay, Mark, that's a good question. I actually don't have the right answer for you right now. I will send you a dedicated email to this, okay? Okay. Next question. Yeah, you're welcome, Mark. Could you put this on every floor of a large skyscraper and edge out the beast on each floor to save on wiring costs? So Darren, we cannot cover a whole skyscraper. It's challenging on the management side, also of the access points. So that's why I mentioned before, we can go to spaces of, let's say, 500 or 1,000 square meters. But if you're talking about skyscrapers, you have 10, 20, 30,000 square meters. And we're not able from the management side to do this. If you're just talking about like one floor that has maybe, let's say, 500 square meters, you can just put one router in every room and then have the connectivity through this. That's possible. Another question is, do you support DOCSIS, coaxial, DSL, and fiber? So to clarify this, the product that you can see here is not a modem. So for the user to use this system, they always need a gateway. They always need a modem that is first taking in the broadband connection, let's say DSL, and then you connect this system using an Ethernet cable to the modem. And then the router is helping you to spread the Wi-Fi signal throughout the house. Okay, another question. Is Mercku focused on software or hardware or both? For instance, is this similar to a Bloom solution? Let me introduce Mercku maybe in a little bit more detail. We see ourselves as an end-to-end solution company. So we do everything from the software development, from the product design, from the engineering design, mass manufacturing design, to the manufacturing, then the sales, the marketing, customer service. So we do all of this. It's all basically in our hand. That's why we are able to offer, for example, all of these customized solutions. It's very easy for us. We have the control inside the whole value chain, and we can then basically adapt to our customers. So I would say if you want to compare us with Bloom, we are definitely more flexible. And because we have everything internal, it's easy for us to adapt and customize our solutions. Okay. There is no other question so far. So because we have a few more minutes, I have one bonus section actually. It's a topic that I like, and that's the 5G question. So often when we are going to conferences, we get this question of, okay, how does 5G impact you? Let me maximize the screen again here, 1 second. So I want to put that question back to you. I want to ask you, what do you think? Will 5G replace Wi-Fi? Okay, most of the people are picking the right answer. It's of course a very controversial question, but it's a topic that comes up in marketing and all the time. So many people have this in their mind. Just to show the result quickly here, there's even 30% who don't believe in 5G. Okay, that's funny. But of course, the right answer is they will complement each other. So just to give a quick introduction, that's of course the correct question. Both technology will complement and support each other. I want to give a little bit background of why that is the case. So if you look, for example, at what frequencies each of the solution is using, you can see that Wi-Fi has a smaller frequency. So it's usually on the 2.4G and the 5G, but it's almost confirmed that Wi-Fi will also use the 6G frequency, but 5G is using 24 gigahertz or more. So that's why it has a very, very short range. If you want to cover, a city with a 5G network, you need thousands of antennas to spread all across the city. It's a very, very heavy investment to do this. And still, you cannot penetrate most of the indoor spaces. So it's kind of like a handshake. 5G will basically be more used in the outside area and Wi-Fi more inside. So I have a little comparison here of a few dimensions. So range, 5G has a longer range outdoor if you think about having basically the infrastructure set up, and then you can freely move around with your phone. That's often still not the case with Wi-Fi in indoor spaces, because you don't have large Wi-Fi mesh networks in let's say shopping malls and so on, where you can easily roam around. But if you look at the cost of the device chip, so this is the end device, like a phone, a laptop. If you want to put a 5G chip in there, it's very expensive. So that's why many devices are still relying on Wi-Fi. And that's why there's still a long future for Wi-Fi itself. Setting up the infrastructure for 5G is very cost intensive. So let's look back at 4G. Who benefited actually from 4G infrastructure? I don't think it was the telecom companies. I think it was technology companies like Google, Facebook, and so on. Did they pay for the infrastructure? No, but they benefited from all of this. So that's why it's kind of difficult for the government and the companies to set up the new infrastructure, do all of this investment to build the next infrastructure, but not having the companies that are using it chip in. So 5G will be used for autonomous vehicles. So why don't the automobile companies chip in to build the 5G infrastructure? Also, the cost for the user to use the data is much cheaper on Wi-Fi than on 5G. And it's very available. All of the devices have Wi-Fi chips, so it's quite ubiquitous. The speed is comparable to 5G, especially with Wi-Fi 6 coming up. And it has a very, very large capacity to provide devices with connectivity. All right, we actually, time-wise, close to the end. Let me quickly look if we have another question coming up here. No, that's not the case. Okay, I want to quickly wrap this up. Thank you for joining, everybody. Again, as Angie mentioned in the beginning, we will follow up with you after this webinar. So we will share this slide here with you, the video. We will also put you on our next B2B, the newsletter, where you can see information about the smart home industry and how you can connect with us. And we're happy to schedule maybe a call with you if you have any question. So just feel free to reach out to me or our team. And we hope to hear more from you soon. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for joining, everybody. Goodbye.